Hello everyone, I'm Exodia, and today we are doing the next part in our Roblox Scripting Advanced series. Today we're talking about the mouse and how we can use it in scripting. Before we begin, I'd like to apologize for the lack of uploads when I normally would have them. I had some stuff planned, like I wanted to get to learn some editing for videos and thumbnail creation so I could work on some projects I have in the works. But yeah, let's get into the video. So the mouse, as you can see, we have our mouse. If we play in Roblox, we have our custom mouse here with the custom icon. We can use scripting to get the mouse, so we can do stuff like, say, get the position of the mouse and maybe get when it clicks or something. If you want to be able to use the mouse in a script, it can only be done on the client, not on the server. So we'll have to make a local script, and if you did not watch the video on local scripts, then they're basically scripts that only run on the player client, which they'll only run on the player for the player, not the server. So changes that occur in a local script only occur for a player rather than the whole game server. So if we want to make a local script, we can go into starter player and starter player scripts, and then click on the plus, and then create a local script, and then we'll rename it to mouse. Now, if we want to get the mouse via script, we have to do two things first. We have to get a variable for the player, so we'll write local player equals game.players.local player. This is how we write a variable, always with local in the front if you're unfamiliar with this. And then if we want to get the player, we do game.players.local player, and this will get the local player client that the script is active on. And then if we want to get the mouse, we do player we'll make a variable for the mouse, local mouse equals player get mouse with an open close parenthesis at the end. And then now we can start doing stuff with the mouse. So there's a few things we can do. For example, we can detect when you use a left and right click by doing this mouse.button one down connect function. Basically what is happening here is every time we left click, the code inside this function will trigger. And also, if we instead wanted to do the right click, we do mouse.button2 down connect function. And this will trigger if you right click. And then there is also a function for when you release the mouse button. So mouse.button one up connect function, and then mouse.button 2 up connect function. And if you'd like to view all of the different events that are with the mouse on the API, it'll show everything on the developer API. I will have this linked either in the description or pinned comment. So here we could see the functions that we have and the events. So we'll have button 1 down, button 1 up, button 2 down, button 2 up. We can also check when the mouse is idle, when we move the mouse, and also when we scroll the wheel forward or backward. In this case, we are just doing when we click the mouse on left or right click and release those buttons. Something that also may commonly be used is mouse.move for certain things, where whenever the mouse moves, this will trigger. So if we move the mouse on our screen, then it will cause that code in that function to execute. In fact, we can even look at an example of that later. But for now, we're just going to focus on these things. So we print left clicked, print right clicked, print left click released, and then print right click released. If we were to go test this in Studio, then we will find that we can left click and then right click as well. And when we let go of them, then also our mouse button 1 up and button 2 up, that also triggers. So this is how you can trigger code to happen when you click or right click and when those buttons get released. And these are pretty useful for certain things you want to do. Say you want to make a gun, you could do that. Whenever you click the mouse, you could shoot or do other stuff with it. Very useful things for the mouse. Get them. Usually, if you want to do stuff like that, when you're using the mouse, you're gonna commonly use a remote event to communicate the data from the client to the server. But this is some stuff you could do with the mouse for the clicking, when you detect when you left or right click and when that button releases. And now we'll get to some of the more technical stuff with the mouse. So we're going to keep mouse.button1down:connect function, as we're going to do some stuff when the mouse left clicks. So there are a few things we can do, and one of them is get mouse.hit. Now what mouse.hit does is it'll give you the C frame or coordinate frame position of the mouse in the 3D space. So it'll give you all the details for that, but we don't really need all that usually in our games. So we could do mouse.hit.position, and this will return the vector 3 position of the mouse. So we can wrap this around in a print. So whenever we click the mouse, it'll print. We don't need to actually put quotations, because then it'll just print the position here. So if we click, it'll print our vector 3 position of the mouse in the 3D space. This can be useful if you want to say if you're shooting a gun, for example, that you're making in Roblox Studio, and you want to get the position that the bullet is supposed to travel to. You can use this here, and then use a remote event to fire it to the server, so the server knows where to move the bullet to. Another thing we can do, because what mouse.hit does is it only gets the position of the mouse in the 3D space. So getting mouse.hit position will only get the vector, and it'll even work. It'll work more precisely when you click on parts in your game, but it also works in the sky. It just gives very far out values, as you can see. They're in the thousands. They tend to be when you click in the sky. But yeah, so that's mouse.hit, and using that when we left click. Another thing we can do is mouse.target. If we print the target of the mouse, what basically mouse.target does is it gets the object that the mouse clicks on. So here we get the base plate. It prints the name of the object that was clicked on. One thing to be careful of, actually, if we test this again, one thing to be careful of is if we do not click a part, for example, if we click the sky, there's nothing, it'll return a nil value. So you've got to be careful of that, because maybe it can cause some errors in your script if you're supposed to get some item inside that part, and you need it to return the proper part. Just be careful if you're clicking on the skybox, then it'll return a nil value. So that can cause some errors in your script. If we look back at the API and look up, other stuff we can get is mouse.origin, a C-frame positioned at the workspace's current camera, oriented toward the mouse's 3D position. Target filter is another thing. So this works with mouse.hit and mouse.target. What mouse.target filter does is it determines a model or an object not to be included with the mouse. So say if we want to do mouse.target filter equals, if we click on this, if we click on something on the API, it'll take us how to use it via script. So we get mouse.target filter equals workspace.model, for example. I believe we do workspace.baseplate. What will happen is when we click with the mouse on the base plate, it'll actually return a nil value because the mouse is ignoring the base plate. Yeah, as you can see, the base plate is being ignored when we click with the mouse. Now, by default, the character that you spawn with is already filtered. So characters in Roblox are already filtered by the mouse. If you click on a character, it will not return the position of them, it'll return the object behind them. If I'm correct, you can only filter one object at a time. There's no way to make a table of objects to filter. Yeah, you can only filter one object at a time. So be careful of that. You can also get the unit ray, the sizes, and also the X position on the screen. So rather than like the GUI space. So if we had a GUI, for example, then we can get like the mouse.x position on that GUI, as it'll get it on the screen rather than in the game. So that's basically everything we can do with the mouse. We could also change the name of it, an icon of it. Like for example, we could change, if we go to mouse.icon equals nil, for example, then we test the game. And even though we have normally Roblox has the default icon, we just have to set it to an empty pair of quotation marks because the nil does not work there because it's not a string. So if we just set it to some empty quote, I believe I know what's going on here. So the reason this did not work is because if you're setting it to no value, I believe it's just going to default to the icon that Roblox sets for it. So if you want to set the custom mouse, you'll have to do mouse.icon equals rbx asset : / your asset here for your decal here. So that's how you set a new mouse icon. That's basically all you need to know with mouse and using it via script. You'll tend to be sending all the data that you get to the server with a remote event. So if we want to demonstrate that, we can put a remote event in here, and we'll call it mouse data. And our local script will get local mouse event equals game : get service replicated storage. This would be an easy way to get replicated storage. And then you could do : wait for child mouse data. Now what wait for child does is it'll yield the script and wait for that until that object loads inside of the game. That way the object is loaded and ready to be used in the script. So we'll fire the event mouse event : fire server. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to send the mouse dot hit dot position. So what we're going to do in the server is we're going to create a brand new part and set it to that position. So we'll make a script and do mouse, call it mouse underscore server local mouse event equals game : get service replicated storage : find first child mouse data. And then we'll do mouse event dot on server event : connect function. This is a function that passes every time we fire a remote event from the client, and vice versa. You can also do mouse event dot on client event : connect function, and this would be a function that fires every time you're firing a remote event to the client from the server. So every time this receives the remote event when it gets fired from the server, this will trigger, and then the code inside will run. No parameters need to be specified by default unless you give the extra parameters on the client. However, on the server, if the remote event is being received, like the signal is being received in the server, the player is an automatic default parameter to get the player that fired the event. If you want to fire the event to the client, you need the player, so you know which client to fire it on. But anyways, we'll separate this by a comma. Then we'll get our mouse position. We'll call it mouse pose for that. And then we'll make a local new part equals instance dot new, and then part. And so what this does is instance.new creates a new object, and then inside the parentheses we specify what object we want to make. So in this case we'll make a part. new part dot anchored equals true. New part dot position equals mouse pose. And then what this will do is it'll create a new part on the position of the mouse that we click on, or it should at least. Oh, that's what's going on. So every time we make a part, if we want to make a new one, we have to set the parent. And that's what I forgot to do. So mouse part.parent equals, we'll set it to the workspace, which is here, which is it's where you're going to tend to store all the main assets for your game, and you get it by just typing workspace all lowercase. So if we were to play this now, it should work. Everywhere we click, a part should spawn, yep, at the position. And as you can see, even though we aren't using target filter, the player is automatically filtered by the mouse. But yeah, that is just some basic use of the mouse and how you'll tend to use it inside your game. And just a nice introduction to the mouse. As always, if you find anything throughout the video to be confusing or need some clarification, please express your concerns down in the comments. I will get back to everybody that comments to the best of my abilities. Otherwise, if you have some nice criticism for the video, leave that in the comments as well, as I look at all the comments that are left. Anyways, if you found the video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I tend to post these on a regular schedule, these videos for tutorials, usually every Sunday and Wednesday. So yeah, see ya.